So think about your smartphone right now.
Okay.
Specifically, uh, picture that little battery icon in the top right corner of your screen.
Oh, yeah, the one we're all constantly staring at.
Exactly. And if you are like most people, your relationship with your own fundamental self-value operates almost exactly like that battery indicator.
Mm,
But, it has this terrible, exhausting glitch
yeah.
because most of us wake up every single morning acting as if that internal battery is sitting at absolute 0%.
Which is just a brutal way to start the day.
It really is. I mean, we open our eyes, and before we even get out of bed, the scramble begins.
Yeah.
We feel like we have to frantically earn a charge for the day.
Yeah, you hit the ground running just to prove you're allowed to be here.
Exactly. We immediately start doing tasks. We try to be hyper-productive at work. We bend over backwards to accommodate other people's needs.
And we take on all this emotional labor that isn't even ours to begin with.
Yes, and we do all of this just to get that internal battery up to like 10, maybe 20%, so we can feel like we have finally earned the right to simply take up space in the world.
And operating from that baseline assumption,
Yeah,
but assumption of a deficit, it is completely draining.
totally.
It frames existence itself as this debt that you constantly have to pay off. You start your day in the red, and every single action is just an attempt to break even.
But what if that entire premise is just a lie?
Right.
What if you are completely wrong about the battery? Because the premise we are exploring today flips this glitch entirely. What if the battery isn't at zero?
What if it's full?
Exactly. What if it is permanently, irrevocably full simply because you exist?
That is the core question.
It is. Welcome to this deep dive, everyone. Today, we are taking you on this custom-tailored exploration into the architecture of your own internal narrative.
It's a really fascinating topic.
It really is. We are unpacking a super interesting stack of materials today. Specifically, we're looking at the lyrics to a song called Worthy by the artist Ti-Fi, alongside Ti-Fi's spoken commentary from the Reclaiming You writer's room. And our mission today is to deconstruct these sources to uncover why the way you talk to yourself is, well, the ultimate key to reclaiming your life.
And how you can actually start rewriting that script for yourself. Because the source material here is incredibly pragmatic.
Yeah, it's not just fluff.
Exactly. It doesn't just offer these feel-good platitudes about, loving yourself. It provides a real structural teardown of our daily mental habits.
Which we desperately need.
We do.
Yeah.
And to understand how to reclaim that full battery state, we first have to strip away this massive misconception that clouds almost everyone's judgment.
Okay, lay it on us.
We have to look at what we actually mean when we use the word worthiness. Because culturally, we have fundamentally confused it with something else entirely.
Right, the sources draw this hard, explicit line between worthiness and confidence, which is wild because it seems like we conflate those two constantly.
Oh, all the time.
The assumption is usually, like, if you can just build enough confidence, if you become competent enough or successful enough or attractive enough, you will automatically feel worthy as a byproduct.
Yeah, we treat confidence as the vehicle to reach worthiness. But Ti-Fi's commentary explicitly separates them.
It pulls them totally apart.
Right. And understanding this separation is basically the foundation of everything else we're going to discuss. Because confidence is entirely task-dependent.
Meaning it's about what you can do.
Exactly. It's rooted in action. Confidence is knowing you have the acquired skills to paint a picture or rebuild a car engine or deliver a flawless presentation to your board of directors.
Right, it's skill-based.
And because it is tied to external tasks and your capability to perform them, confidence naturally fluctuates. It changes depending on the day, your energy levels, the environment.
The specific challenge sitting right in front of you.
Exactly.
Well, let me push back on that framework for a second, or at least test its limits here.
Sure, go for it.
Because when I think of the most confident people in the world, like, let's picture a Fortune 500 CEO who completely commands a boardroom,
Okay.
or an elite gold medal Olympic athlete stepping onto the track. They exude this absolute certainty.
Oh, yeah, they do.
So are we saying it is actually possible for someone to be wildly confident in those arenas, but possess absolutely zero self-worth underneath it all?
Oh, absolutely. We see that dichotomy all the time, particularly in high-stress environments.
Wait, really?
Yes. The commentary paints a picture that explains so much the burnout we see prevalent in high achievers. When people lack a baseline of intrinsic worthiness, they recognize that void.
They feel that the battery is at zero.
Exactly. So to survive, They try to compensate by building this heavy armor of confidence through their achievements.
Oh, wow.
The internal logic essentially dictates if I am the absolute best athlete or if I'm the most ruthlessly successful CEO, then I matter. I am undeniably valuable.
But the flaw there is that confidence fluctuates.
Right. Because it fluctuates by its very nature. It creates a highly fragile, highly conditional sense of self-esteem.
So you are basically building your entire identity on a foundation that shifts every time the wind blows.
You see the fallout of that fragility constantly. Think about it. The moment that elite athlete loses a race, or ages out of the sport, or suffers an injury,
The foundation cracks.
the foundation cracks. The moment that CEO makes a bad financial call or has to step down, their confidence plummets.
And because they've tied their entire human value to that conditional confidence, their sense of self fundamentally shatters.
Exactly. Whereas worthiness, as defined in our sources, operates on a completely different frequency.
How does it define it?
Worthiness is described as the quiet knowing that you matter simply because you exist. It is about who you are, not what you can do. It doesn't fluctuate.
So if we mistakenly believe our worth is tied to our capabilities, if we spend our lives chasing confidence instead of cultivating worthiness, we fall into this dangerous behavioral loop.
A very exhausting loop.
Yeah. And this is where the lyrics of the song Worthy hit incredibly hard. Ti-Fi sings, "I built a heavy house out of ribbons and gold stars. Thought the harder I worked, the less I'd feel the scars."
The imagery of that heavy house perfectly captures the sheer physical and emotional weight of hustle culture.
It really does.
Because society constantly broadcasts the message that your value equals your productivity. We are taught from a very young age to collect external validation.
The ribbons, the gold stars, the academic degrees.
The promotions, yeah. We
Right.
collect them as if they are literal bricks.
Right. And if you think about it, we're basically building fortresses out of our resumes, our trophies, and our constant state of busyness. And the intention behind building that fortress is self-preservation. It's supposed to make you feel safe from the world, insulated from criticism, and insulated from the fear that you aren't enough.
But eventually you look around and realize you haven't built a protective fortress at all,
No, you've built a very heavy prison.
and you are trapped inside it. There's another lyric in the material that points out how we end up wearing yourself out just to stay inside the race.
Because carrying that structure requires an immense amount of energy.
It does, and Ti-Fi follows that up with another profound line. They taught me my value was the weight that I could hold.
Man. Let's look at the emotional and physiological toll of that specific belief.
Yeah, let's unpack that. If you genuinely believe you have to carry the weight of the world, the unspoken expectations of your family, the relentless demands of your workplace, the pressures of societal milestones.
Just to earn your right to occupy space.
Exactly. If you believe that, your hands are going to get incredibly tired. Your nervous system is perpetually in overdrive because putting the weight down feels like an existential threat to your value.
Which brings us to what I think might be the most vital mantra from the entire commentary section. We are human beings, not human doings.
The relief embedded in that statement is profound when you actually let it sink in.
It is.
You do not have to be useful to be valuable. You do not need to constantly justify your existence through measurable output.
The intrinsic value of a human being isn't calculated on a spreadsheet.
Exactly.
But, I get intellectually that I shouldn't be a workaholic. And I understand the concept of being a human being. But the minute I sit on the couch on a Sunday afternoon to just rest, the guilt is immediate and overwhelming.
Oh, I think everyone relates to that.
Right. It feels like my brain is actively wired to punish me for sitting still. Does the source material explain why that guilt triggers so fast, even when we know we need rest?
It does. The commentary addresses this friction directly. It takes us into the realm of our own internal monologue and applies a concept it refers to as forensic linguistics to the way we talk to ourselves.
Forensic linguistics. Okay.
Yeah. The reason you feel that immediate guilt on the couch isn't because rest is objectively bad. It's because of the internal voices driving you forward, demanding productivity.
Forensic linguistics. So it's treating your internal monologue as learned behavior rather than objective reality.
Exactly.
It is treating your own self-criticism like a crime scene that needs to be investigated.
That's a great way to put it.
And the song tackles this with the lines, "I've been listening to an echo from a long time ago, a harsh, heavy voice that wouldn't let me grow."
Right. When you apply forensic linguistics to your inner critic, you don't just accept the harsh thought, you analyze its origin.
Mm-hmm.
So if you sit on the couch and the thought, "You are so lazy," pops into your head, you interrogate the linguistics of that sentence. Where did that specific phrasing come from?
And what Ti-Fi suggests is that the cruelest things we say to ourselves, the thoughts that insist we are broken, lazy, or too much, are rarely our own original thoughts.
No, they aren't.
They are echoes.
They are the internalized voices of external forces. They might be the echo of a highly critical parent who demanded perfection.
Or they could be the echo of a harsh teacher or past emotional traumas.
Often, they are the echoes of systemic societal pressures dictating how you should look, act, or produce to be considered acceptable.
And when we lack a foundation of self-worth, we have no defense mechanism against these echoes. We just treat them as absolute truth. We believe them.
We do. And the result, as the lyrics describe, is that we shrink ourselves down. We make ourselves small and compliant to avoid drawing the fire of that internalized criticism.
I want to ask you, a listener, a direct question about how this manifests in your own life.
Yeah, this is a good thought experiment.
Think about a mistake you made recently. Maybe you sent an email with a glaring typo to your boss, or you snapped at your partner after a long day. Think about the specific internal monologue that played in your head in the 10 seconds after that happened. If you recorded that inner monologue, burned it onto a CD, and played it back out loud, would you ever speak to your best friend the way you speak to yourself?
It is a deeply sobering thought experiment.
It really is.
Because most of us would be horrified if we overheard a stranger speaking to our friend the way our internal voice speaks to us. We tolerate a level of internal verbal abuse that we would never accept in the physical world.
But the sources make a crucial distinction about how to handle this realization. Stopping this harsh echo isn't about forced toxic positivity.
Right, it's not about delusions.
No, it's not about standing in front of your bathroom mirror and aggressively lying to yourself, chanting, "I am perfect and everything is amazing," when you actually feel terrible. Or when you did, in fact, make a mistake.
Yeah, you don't have to lie.
It is simply about choosing to be an ally to yourself in the face of failure, rather than your own worst enemy.
And the mechanics of how Ti-Fi describes changing this pattern are really fascinating. The lyric states, "I'm pulling out the tape and I'm stopping the track."
I love that imagery.
It's so good. It frames the change as an active, conscious interruption. By utilizing that forensic linguistics approach, you identify these harsh thoughts as external echoes rather than internal truths.
And that creates immediate cognitive distance.
Yes. Instead of spiraling into, "I am a failure," you can observe the thought and say, "That is the echo of a boss who made me feel inadequate 5 years ago.
Oh,
That is not my voice."
wow.
This active interruption, the physical act of metaphorically pulling out the tape, is where the gritty, uncomfortable work of building self-worth actually happens.
It's giving yourself the pen back.
Exactly.
When you successfully pull out that tape, you stop letting ghosts from your past or pressures from society write your story. And doing this unlocks what the commentary calls a superpower.
Because it fundamentally changes how you define success, failure, and your own emotional landscape.
It reorients your entire relationship with your own mind. We can see this in the central metaphor of the song.
Yes, the sky metaphor.
In the commentary and some versions of the lyrics, Ti-Fi says, "I am the wide open." And in the audio track, we hear, "I am the white sky, I am not the storm."
The variation between wide open and white sky really emphasizes this incredible, untouchable vastness.
Let's unpack the mechanics of that sky metaphor, because I think it is a brilliant way to practice cognitive distancing in real time.
Oh, absolutely.
When a massive, violent thunderstorm rolls into your city, you look up and see lightning, dark clouds, and torrential rain. But you never think the sky itself is broken.
Right. You understand that the sky is just the container.
Exactly. It simply holds the weather until the weather inevitably passes.
And that is the exact psychological shift the source is advocating for regarding our emotional states. When a severe panic attack hits, or when you're engulfed in a depressive episode or intense grief.
Those heavy emotions are the storm.
Yes, they feel all-encompassing, but they are just weather passing through your nervous system. They are not your permanent identity. You are the sky.
Let the weather just pass. The sky is so clear. It gives you permission to actually experience the emotion without internalizing it as a permanent character flaw.
You don't have to fix the storm. You just have to outlast it.
That's so powerful. And it creates a natural progression to the next concept in the lyrics. Stepping off the scale. I don't have to be perfect. It's okay if I fail.
Because when you realize your identity is the vast sky rather than the temporary storm, you can refuse to let your worth be weighed by outside metrics.
Failure completely loses its teeth.
Exactly.
Mm.
A mistake at work or in a relationship becomes just a mistake. It's a passing cloud rather than a defining characteristic of your identity.
But releasing that pressure creates a new, somewhat terrifying vacuum, though.
How so?
Well, if you are no longer measuring your worth by your output, your perfectionism, or your ability to avoid failure, how do you know if you are actually succeeding in life?
Ah, right.
Ti-Fi addresses this vacuum by redefining victory entirely. The bridge of the song states, "Here is a victory for opening my eyes. Here is a quiet moment with no compromise."
The commentary explicitly connects this to the broader picture of mental health struggles. It offers a radical redefinition of what it means to be successful.
Because society conditioned us to believe that a victory looks like a lucrative promotion, or crossing the finish line of a marathon, or checking off every single item on a massive to-do list.
Yeah, big external wins.
But Ti-Fi argues that true self-worth allows us to recognize that sometimes just existing is enough of a triumph.
There is a line that reinforces this beautifully. I don't need a resume to justify my breath.
I don't need a resume to justify my breath. Man!
When someone is in the thick of a mental health struggle, pushing through the invisible, crushing weight of their own mind just to get out of bed and survive the day, that is the ultimate victory.
It really is.
The source is asking us to start celebrating survival itself.
Uh-huh.
We have to recalibrate our internal scales to recognize the immense effort it takes simply to endure sometimes.
Just surviving is a massive win, and I think millions of people desperately need permission to hear that.
Definitely.
Because when you stop operating from that deficit we talked about at the very beginning, when you realize your battery is already full, you no longer have to hustle for your worth.
And the practical application of this is huge.
It is. It means you can actually advocate for yourself. You can set boundaries at work or with family without that gnawing, paralyzing guilt.
Because you aren't terrified that saying no will drain your battery to zero and make you lose your value.
Right. You can set those boundaries because you finally understand the fundamental truth embedded in the lyric, "I don't have to earn the right to be warm."
You deserve safety, rest, and warmth simply because you are a human being. It is an unalienable right, not a reward for good behavior.
Bringing all these philosophical concepts down to the ground, though, down to the listener's immediate reality, how do you walk away with this superpower?
Right. How do we use it?
What does it actually look like tomorrow morning when the alarm goes off and the demands of the world start rushing in?
Well, the most important practical takeaway from the sources is that worthiness is not a magical destination.
It's not a one-and-done thing.
No. You don't just listen to a song or dissect a deep dive like this, have a sudden epiphany, and then never struggle with self-doubt ever again. Right. But it is an active daily practice. It requires maintenance.
It is a conscious choice, every single morning.
You have to wake up and consciously choose to silence the echoes. You have to intercept the thought that tells you you're already behind and choose to believe that you matter before you have answered a single email, made a single dollar, or accomplished a single task.
You have to deliberately strip away the external expectations.
And remember the ultimate undeniable truth from the commentary. You are worthy. You have always been worthy.
You've always been worthy. The battery was never empty.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us and for holding space for this exploration. It is brave, gritty work to look inward and start pulling out the tape.
It really is.
But before we go, we want to leave you with one final provocative thought to chew on today. We talked extensively about how you don't have to earn the right to be warm and how your baseline value isn't tied to your output. So imagine this scenario. If you woke up tomorrow and truly deeply believed that you didn't have to earn your space in the world, that your battery was already at 100% just by existing, what is the very first exhausting thing you would finally stop doing?